Will she or won't she? All eyes are firmly on Labor Senator Fatima Payman this morning after she lashed out at fellow Labor parliamentarians late yesterday. The Western Australian politician accused her colleagues of seeking to intimidate her into quitting Parliament after the Prime Minister indefinitely suspended her from the Labor caucus.
Senator Payman sensationally crossed the floor to back a Greens motion on Palestinian statehood late last week and says she's since been exiled by colleagues. She's now considering her future in the Labor Party, while the Greens could put forward a similar motion within days. Government frontbencher Mark Butler is here next hour, but first to our political reporter, Nicole Hegarty at Parliament House. Nicole, good morning to you. What do we know about Senator Payman's plans from here?
Good morning, Lisa. Well, in the immediate term, Senator Payman says she will abstain from voting on all Senate matters for the remainder of the week, apart from issues of conscience. And on that last part, we could see a repeat of last week by way of crossing the floor if the Greens do proceed with plans to move a similar motion to that last week on the question of Palestinian statehood. That could see Senator Payman cross the floor again, which would be another breach of the Labor Party's long-held rules, which have led to this indefinite suspension from the Labor Party's caucus. We heard on the 7:30 program last night from Adam Bandt on the question of this motion and what the Greens' moves are. Take a listen.
Our focus is on trying to get the government to act. There's concrete things that Labor could be doing to put pressure on this extremist Netanyahu government to stop the invasion, things like putting on sanctions, things like stopping the two-way military trade. We want to get the government to do that, including recognising Palestine. There are a number of things we can do: questions, motions, legislation.
Parliament rises on Thursday for the winter break and isn't back until the second week of August. In that time, it's expected that Senator Payman will continue to contemplate her future within the party amid suggestions that she could be considering a move to join a new political organisation called the Muslim Vote, which is preparing to stand candidates in some of Labor's safest seats, particularly around Western Sydney. They're airing disappointment at the government's actions in response to the Israel-Gaza war and saying more needs to be done, so that we could see the suggestions that Senator Payman could join that group. Labor, however, does support a Palestinian state as part of a two-state solution, but they say that needs to be achieved as part of a broader peace process. So steps towards that are needed first rather than proceeding right now, sooner rather than later, as the Greens and Senator Payman are calling for. The political ramifications of this continue to play out, with leaders of faith communities in Western Sydney in particular also airing their frustration at the government's approach and response to the war.
OK, Nicole, thank you.
Big news overseas overnight. Let's take you to the US, because in a landmark decision, the US Supreme Court has ruled former President Donald Trump is entitled to absolute immunity from prosecution for some official acts while in office. Our North America correspondent Barbara Miller joins us from outside the court in Washington. Barbara, good morning. So this ruling was in connection with the January the 6th case. What exactly did the court decide?
The court found that Donald Trump and any former president really has pretty significant immunity for anything they did which could be classed as an official act. Now, the reasoning behind that decision is that presidents have to make snap decisions, that they should be able to act without fear of prosecution. And the court went into some of the allegations in the January 6th case against Donald Trump, saying that, for example, conversations with Justice Department officials and with his vice president, well, they would count as official acts. Now, the allegation brought by Special Counsel Jack Smith is that Donald Trump tried to pressure Vice President Mike Pence into not certifying the results of the election. The court also suggested that perhaps that speech Donald Trump made on January 6 before his supporters stormed the Capitol might also be an official act because it was a public communication. So it's now up to the lower court to decide whether some of the these actions can still be classed as unofficial acts and whether any of this January 6 case really remains. What it certainly does is it delays further that case. There's very almost no chance it could possibly take place before November's election. It could, Michael, totally derail that case. There might not be enough of it left after the court goes through this ruling from the court to really carry on with it. No wonder then that Donald Trump has described today's decision as a big win.
So, Bob, what could this mean for Donald Trump's other cases going forward?
Look, I think that's really up in the air now. I think what we'd expect is that Donald Trump's lawyers are really going through this ruling now and seeing whether it can apply to those other cases. For example, the hush money case, the only one of the 4 criminal cases he's facing, where he's been tried and convicted. Some tweets were used in evidence there, for example, some testimony from his former advisor, Hope Hicks. It's possible they'll try and mount a case there that those should be deemed official acts and use that in their appeal against this conviction. I think the same could be seen in the other cases he's facing. So really, I think this decision almost went further than Donald Trump had perhaps hoped for. He wanted to delay this case. The decision appears to have gone further than that. So far that in a dissenting opinion, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said that it made a mockery, this decision, of the concept that no man was above the law. It said that it would allow a president to operate essentially in a law-free zone, that they could, she said, order the assassination of a political rival and be immune from prosecution. So questions now not just about what it means for January 6th case and the other criminal cases Donald Trump's facing, but what it could mean for a possible second Trump presidency.
Barbara Miller outside the US Supreme Court, thank you. Emma's here with the rest of the morning's news. Good morning.
Good morning to you both. Police have confirmed the bus in the devastating crash in North Queensland on Sunday was travelling on the wrong side of the Bruce Highway before the fatal collision. 3 women died in the crash, while 2 men aged 23 and 24 remain in intensive care with critical injuries. Authorities will also look at the condition of the roads as part of the investigation into the cause of the crash. Facebook pages linked to foreign interference in the UK election have been taken down. It comes after an ABC investigation monitored 5 coordinated Facebook pages spreading Kremlin talking points administered from Nigeria. Some were also posting in support of Nigel Farage's Reform UK party. A Meta spokesperson says the pages were deceiving people about who was behind them, including posing as UK-based pages. The state opposition in Tasmania is calling for a wider investigation into the failure at Launceston Hospital to refer dozens of deaths to the coroner. A report found 29 deaths between 2020 and 2022 were instead signed off on by a former senior member of staff who falsely claimed to be the last person to see the patient. The staff member worked there for decades, and Labor wants to know if there are any other cases.
OK, let's see what the markets have been up to overnight. Flat session on Wall Street. Our futures are pointing down, although very slightly. The Aussie dollar at 66.6 US cents, Brent crude at 87 US dollars a barrel, and gold up more than $5 in value overnight.
And One Direction star Louis Tomlinson has been called the man of the people. He managed to hook up a TV to a power generator at Glastonbury so people could watch England play Slovakia in the Euros after the Glastonbury Festival organisers opted not to show it. There was outrage.